Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Marcia. I'm so excited that we got the timelines right.
Yeah, I got up early and I was ready, and then I got a phone call and I got tied up on the phone call. So,
Well, I'm glad that we made it. We made the link
yeah.
happen. It can be a little like strange, when there's all these different timelines and then, kind of daylight savings on your side and
Oh,
it's
yeah,
summer
I
here and
forgot. I
you've
think
got winter.
so. From the looks of you, it's pretty warm there.
Yes, it's so boiling. We're having a heat wave.
It's beautiful here. It's in like the 70s and 80s. So, I
Is
put
it?
on one of the last times I put on a sweater because I'm probably going to be in 100 degrees in a few weeks. So, I figured I might as well take advantage of it.
Oh, where are you going?
No, here in Arizona, it
Oh,
heats
okay.
up because it's the
Okay.
desert. And
Okay.
so it can get up in the summertime, it's about 114 degrees Fahrenheit. I forget what that is on the Celsius scale, but it's hot. It's extraordinarily hot.
So that's
So,
where you're based in Arizona.
yeah.
You're in UFO country.
So, so are we recording now, or is this
Yes,
before?
I've started. So if
Oh,
you're
okay.
okay with it, we can just go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to ask you if you can see everything okay.
Yeah,
You can
we
edit
look
all this part
great.
out, or everybody in the world can see us chatting about nonsense.
So, Marsha, I just wanted to say that I started doing some of these recordings last year with just people. I was basically teaching myself how to do online recordings, but I was working with people that inspired me, and you're definitely one of those people, one of those
Well, thank you. That's an
inspirational
honor.
figures all around the world. I just think your work is amazing, and linking the UFOs and business, and this is the area that really interests me, especially in the times that we're in at the moment.
It's an amazing time, and I think there's a portion of the population who's aware of what is going on, and there's a portion of the population that isn't. At this point, I think a lot of us can see there's amazing turnover and change happening very radically. A lot of people are looking at it saying, well, change always happens, social movements always happen. But this is different, I feel, than any other time in history. And I think that we have been given a baton and we have a choice as to whether or not we're going to take up that baton. And what our mission is to see if we can morph ourselves into a more advanced state of civilization, to a higher form of being who understands the value of a peaceful worldwide civilization and understands the value of looking at another member of their species as a brethren and not as a threat. And so this is what we have been tasked to do, in my estimation. And with the breakthroughs that we've had scientifically within the realm of technology in particular, it has given us a new mass of knowledge and new abilities to understand the world around us, which gives us new tools of understanding that we can use to our advantage. We just have to make sense of the code that's all around us, the code being these new tools of understanding, and wield them effectively. If we do this, the future is golden, metaphorically and literally. The future is a beautiful future for humanity. If we don't, we're stuck in the same old swamp that we've been swimming in for hundreds of thousands of years. So this is a fascinating time. What I'm spending my work doing is getting people prepared to understand how they can be effective to help broaden the scope of understanding that people have. And I didn't understand it. Getting back to the extraterrestrial reality aspect, I didn't understand it, but I know now from the things that I was told when I was young, this is what they were preparing me for. I keep hitting my face, excuse me. I've got a cat here, and you may meet some of my cats. They may jump on the front of the screen.
That's
I
fine.
have one like dangling on it, it's driving me nuts.
They like to participate in these things.
Sometimes you may see a cat tushy with a big tail come up instead of my face. They've
I
done that before.
know. It's your other psychic counterpart. So,
So,
I mean, there's just it's very exciting, really, to make the link. I mean, part of my intention is to broaden the scope of this kind of conversation here in South Africa. You know, help to plant the seeds of consciousness and
Absolutely.
just to help to awaken the acceptability in a way for, you know, this level of conversation. So that's really what I'm excited to be doing. And there's just so many places that we could go in the conversation, but maybe you could say something about your upbringing and how you got to write the Confessions of an Intergalactic Anthropologist, and just tell us a little bit of the background, maybe.
Excellent idea. Let me introduce myself to your audience. Um, what happened to me was I had extraterrestrial contact experiences since I was a child. I didn't understand them when I was young. I didn't know what to make of them. I didn't know how to integrate them into my life, so I just ignored them. Because back when I was growing up, and I have no compunction letting people know how old I am. You know, I was born at the end of the 50s, 1950s, and back then there was nothing to help us understand these things. It was the realm of extreme science fiction. There was no way that this was a part of our reality. So I just swept it under the table, and it wasn't until I was in my 30s when I began to really take a different perspective on it and take control of the situation. Show a bit of what I like to refer to as self-mastery. When this happened, the alien contact visits changed in the nature of what transpired. When I began to be more self-aware, more self-conscious, I was treated differently. I was treated more as a student, and I was given a lot of information to understand, where before it was more experiential. It was more, you know, what just happened? And I knew that extreme things happened to me, but I would also ask to have them covered up in my unconscious so I wouldn't remember them. So here I had made the change, and I started embracing it, trying to understand more about it. My life changed dramatically because when you interact with them in a very intelligent manner, instead of a, oh, golly gee whiz, I liken it to being similar to when we as humans study animals, and all of a sudden the animal says, say you're trying to teach them languaging, like Coco the famous gorilla, and Coco would sit there and she would sign ball, banana, cat, and all of a sudden you walk in one day and she says, my tooth hurts, I want a dentist. You go, whoa, and all of a sudden I can go to a whole new level with this being. And that's kind of what happened in a, you know, as an example. So I began to be able to take back more information, and I had a lot of information about time-space reality. But what I find intriguing when we get back to the question of man and man as a spiritual being, most of my teachings were really about that, how to be a better human being, how to be a better person, how to be a wiser person, what really matters, how is the world connected, how is the universe connected, energetically, spiritually, responsibility to each other. And then as the years progressed, it began to be even more and more of civic responsibility when you live in a collective. And so the nature of the education is astonishing. And as I mentioned, it seemed to all be predicated on my ability to become more self-aware. Also, the other thing that was a big gateway for passing through and getting what I find the more intriguing information was, if you don't believe everything that you're given, it's a positive. So many people I found who have had extraterrestrial contact experiences come back so struck in awe of it that they believe everything that they've seen or heard, and they don't understand the large scope of how it all fits in. And so we're known to misinterpret a lot of things, and there are those who will also play to our egos, say, you're special, you're an ambassador, go back and tell everyone all about this. And, you know, they make a fool of themselves, basically. And when you don't fall for that, to me, it seems almost as if they use it as, to use one of our Earth analogies, a fraternity hazing situation. If you can get through that and not fall for it, they see you have a maturity where they're going to give you more advanced stuff. But I see a lot of neophytes that have had extraterrestrial contact to say, I'm in contact with this one group, and this is what they say, and I'm the ambassador, and you have to learn and you have to listen, and that's total nonsense. I mean, I'm going to be crude and say it's just pure bullshit. You know, it really is. It just shows that you're being sucked in and able to be manipulated. You know, and most of them want to see something more sophisticated than that. So it behooves us, if you ever do have a contact experience, you want to try to maintain your consciousness in a way that your cognitive awareness is always switched on. Because oftentimes what happens is we go in a semi-altered state. And as I mentioned, you're so in awe of what's taking place, you know, you don't even think. You're just like, what the? You know? So you don't even really think to ask the questions that you would want to ask. And so we want to stay aware, we want to stay intellectually awake, and, you know, pay attention and question everything. Because we're very naive and gullible.
So are these these stories that you put into your book, is this part of your journey did you meet various civilizations and various different...
I think that was really helpful for me. Yeah, I think that was really helpful for me because I had many different exposures to different species and races. So we sometimes hear people talk about a group like the Pleiadians or the Greys. I saw life forms that I didn't even know how to categorize them. What I also learned was that most of the terminology that we have for these different races are things that we've used. There's a lot of information about extraterrestrial reality that isn't based on first-hand experience per se. It's based more on people studying other people's experiences, or there's a lot of channeling information coloring the waters that is out there. And so I think that our encyclopedia, so to speak, of what we know is not clean. Because I've always based everything that I've gone on directly on what I've experienced, not what someone else has said. And it makes a big difference. You know, I've seen there's a lot of things that contradict what these stereotypes are that people have out there. And it's really a shame that extraterrestrial reality has been ripped away and torn from our history because we don't have anything to go on, and we're trying to build on the pieces that we have. And the collective pieces that we have, as I said, sometimes are colored with the wrong crayons, in my opinion. You know, people may disagree with me, but I just go on. And what I've experienced face-to-face versus channeling, because I've also had information given to me through that process, it's different. It's very different. And you have to be very careful of the channeled information. You really don't know where it's coming from. I've had a lot of... Amanda, you know me, so you know, I know you know I've had a lot of spirit contact, and there's a lot of things that can mask themselves out there. And even sometimes I think people tap into their own higher consciousness and they think it's an extraterrestrial personality. I always use the face-to-face contact experiences as the ultimate barometer, the ultimate litmus test of what's out there. So it's been an interesting life, and you know, the best part for me of it was that I liked that I stayed grounded. I could have at times really gone off, you know, on the track, but I was able to, you know, I got an education, I had a corporate work experience, I had an entrepreneurial professional experience, and was able to put it all together in a way that I said, okay, what makes sense? You know, I could just be Sister Sarah psychic if I wanted to and sharing all this information, but that wasn't me, it didn't fit for me. So I wanted to look at what am I comfortable with that I want to do with this information, and it paralleled with what they'd been training me for, and that was getting people ready for a new society and a new civilization in a practical standpoint. How do you take the abilities that you have, the knowledge that you have, the professional background that you may have gained, and put it into something that's geared for where we're now in the 21st century, which is, you know, a highly changing era. It's a period of advanced technology. Our technology right now is quite infantile as to what it's going to be in the next 20 years, even the next 5 years. You know, we have already been trained to deal with artificial intelligence through our phones, our computers. we've been given the basic introduction to the first steps of dealing with artificial intelligence to get us ready for some of these next steps that are coming our way. So how do we make the best of this while still maintaining the best essence of humanity and the best essence of who we are, and build the future instead of just blindly go forward and stumble our way into it? And this is what we have to learn, is how do you strategically build a future for a civilization? And this is one of the main things I've learned from extraterrestrial races that are out there, because some of those civilizations are very thoughtful. So
they're very what?
Thoughtful.
Okay.
Thoughtful. So they're very thoughtful about what, what are their resources? What do they need for the future? What does the next generation need? It's not stumbling forward, as I chose those words before. It's they strategically look at what is needed and what needs to be done. There's a lot of care and thought given to their future. So that's what we lack. I mean, look at us. We're on this planet. We're always in constant battle with each other. The resources are usurped by a very small percentage of the entire population. Major population pockets suffer greatly because they don't have adequate resources even for basic life rights, food, shelter. And your next genius who could turn the world around may be suffering in a third world country without the adequate resources to develop and nurture them, where they could be that could be the person who's solving the next important problem for humanity. And we have to learn now to realize that the commodity on the planet isn't money and this material wealth. The commodity we have to invest in are humans, human capital. That's what it's all about. And when we do that, then we'll have become first steps to an advanced society.
So I think still quite a lot of waking up to do, don't you think?
There is, and it's going to be very conflicted over the coming years. There's going to be a lot of people who don't want to give up what they have. There's a lot of people who are saying, wait, we want some of this. There's going to be cultures and social systems crumbling, but new ones are growing up. The new trees of society are coming up right along beside it. But it's going to be a very, very busy time, also with a companion alongside it of a lot of scientific advanced discoveries that are going to come in and make our life easier in some ways, but we also have to understand the responsibility of having these tools beside us. So that's why one of the major things I focus on with people also is communication, because you have to learn how to communicate. To do this, you will be a leader. A communicator who is effective can help people control their emotions and see with reason and become part of an enlightened party. So those people who are all out there and how we're all saying, we want to change the world, we have to realize that change does begin with the cliche of it. It does start within ourselves, and we have to perfect ourselves to be the best that we can be, which means being the kindest and wisest that we can be. So then we can also help others to open doorways to understanding.
So, Marcia, do you think that some of these beings, because I know that, there's various sources of information about what's happening. I think that's one of the things. People don't always know which source of information because there's so many different sources. But it's kind of like there's various sources that say that it's obviously, it's coming in phases, this work and this evolution. And so would you say that some of these beings, maybe some of the hybrid beings, are actually incarnating on Earth at the moment? So would you call a contact, perhaps like a face-to-face contact, would you call that meeting someone who's physically incarnated as a hybrid but in a human body? Is that a contact?
Not for me.
Or no?
Not from my personal experiences. They have not been of that nature at all. I know that there are many people who say that they have contact with alien beings. I'm going to give you just what I have seen. It just doesn't mean it's the ultimate truth that's out there. There very possibly are many who are here. My experience with the ones that I've seen have been disenfranchised people who are so broken, in my estimation, are so broken-hearted at humanity that they believe that they're an alien or an alien hybrid, and it's something that they've conjectured to help them cope with the harshness of this world. Because there's many, many tender, loving souls right now who are just so brokenhearted, and they look at what life is like. Not only how we treat each other, how we treat the animal kingdom, how we treat nature. We pillage the planet, and it's very hard for them. So with all the information that's out there, particularly within the New Age arena, it becomes easy to create a fantasy about yourself that I'm not from here, that I'm from somewhere else. And I'm not saying this is for everybody, I'm just saying for some people. And so they create this personality ideology about themselves, and this is how it becomes easier for them. Personally, I'm hesitating because I have a tendency to swear. I just want to say, I don't give a shit.
It's fun!
I really don't give a shit. It's like, who cares? If you want to believe you're from Pleiades, fine, power to you. Do something here. You are here. You are in a human body. Become an effective person and figure out what the rest of the world needs and how to react to them to make effective change. Because otherwise, some of these pools of the population out there, they're not going to relate to you or listen to you. You're going to look foolish to them, and they're just going to go, oh, you're one of those, people who aren't so grounded. They're going to say it a lot harsher than I'm putting it. And so that's why I want people to become effective right now, to be able to understand, how do you relate so somebody's going to listen to the types of ideas and things that you have to say? You need to become an effective mouthpiece. And what happens is people, this is where my sardonic side comes on a little bit, but people will go and stay in these New Age conferences and these small populations that are like summer camps because people feel good. We're around our own type. We can talk about the things that are metaphysical and so far out there that a lot of other ordinary, average people don't discuss or don't understand, and we feel comfortable. But there's like a very isolated summer camp, as I said, and they don't do anything. They just meet up. They have these New Age conferences with the same speaker saying the same stuff over and over again. And I just think there's much more to be done than that. That there's ways to go back into society and reach broad scopes of people who also want information, but they're not going to take it from an extreme story that somebody is putting forth. As I said, you have to learn to communicate differently to get other segments of the population to open up, to consider some of the things that people like you and I would just go, oh, yeah, matter, no big deal. They'd go, what?
So how have you made the bridge from your experience into this?
Beats the hell out of me.
You got no idea.
No. One of the things that I do is I take the time to care about the person or the audience that's in front of me and to understand where they're coming from. I, think in many ways I live in two worlds, because in many ways I think, what a whacknut I am. I can see how people would look at that. Then I know all these things that I know, so I say, all right, so how can I translate it back to them? But, you need to understand what's important to those that you're talking to, so you can effectively convey the information using their language, their terms. They say that the ancient Essenes, who were a mystical sect during a long, long time ago, during time even before the years of Jesus, were a group that when they would go back into town, they lived outside the main area, they were smart enough to know that they would put on robes to match the townspeople instead of their own robes, which were different. They would blend in so that they'd be acceptable. I have some things that I've said publicly, where there's things that you have to do, and one of them is you have to be relatable. So, if I, come out with, well, I was going to say actually kind of trendy right now to have purple or green hair, but if I did that, and spiked it and had crystals on and moo-moos, people are going to look at me one way versus if I, dress more conservatively or more like the average person. So you have to be aware of where you're going and what you're doing and how you're phrasing things, because it's so important for each and every one of us to be a mouthpiece right now, that someone will take the time and listen and not slam the door and go, oh, what a nutbag. So, as I said, I take a look at who's in front of me, and instead of just talking, like I've been doing blah, blah, blah with you, I listen and I hear what's important to them, and I see where they're coming from, and then I address the points that are important to them in a way that they will understand. You know, I speak their language.
But you don't cover up your past. You don't. I
No.
mean, it's always been open, and people
Yeah.
invite you in a way, knowing that that is who you are.
You just said the key thing. They invite me. I don't brag about it. I don't, you know, there are people when you meet them and that's all they are and that's all they talk about. It's boring. They know, you know, if they want to know, I will tell them. But that's not just who I am. It's a part of who I am. It's part of my experience. It's like every human being has gone through puberty. You know, you're not that teenager, but it made you who you are today.
Mm.
So I don't cover it up. I'm very open and honest about it, but I don't force it and I don't put it in anyone's face. As you know, I've never sought being on an interview. I've never sought being at a conference or a speaker. You know, even when I wrote my book, Confessions of an Intergalactic Anthropologist, which put it out on the center stage back a long time ago, when I first put it out, I didn't even, you know, I didn't even want anyone to buy it. I was like, I'm so sure she's done this. I was like, yeah, yeah, this is a book. And then, you know, a few people, you know, read it, and then the word started getting around, and just on grassroots. I mean, I never advertised it. Just on grassroots alone, people want to know more because they said there was a lot of information in there that they hadn't seen in other places. Where I wrote about my experiences, the types of consciousness you have, the types of races that I've encountered, what I learned from them, some of the things about time, space. I haven't put it out there, but I actually have a program that when I get to the next phase of the work I'm doing, where I will go chapter by chapter and tell you what I didn't tell you.
Oh, exciting!
Yeah, yeah. You know, I finished it last year, but you know, as I mentioned to you, I had an injury and I had to have some surgery on my shoulder, and I just like lost all last year work time. So I'm trying to complete something else before I bring all the information out. But
Mm.
yeah, because there's a lot of things that I left in the chapters. They're like seeds, and you'll find them on your spiritual travels that even when we talk about things like the terms we use, our spiritual masters, they part of our job is to see if we recognize a piece of wisdom or something that's more than it seems. And if you do, then you'll be given the rest of the information. And so that's one of the things I've always done in the sessions with people who wanted to focus on that part, you know, on the book or extraterrestrial reality. I'll offer information, but I wait to see if they recognize sometimes some of the things that I've given to them. And if they have, then they're ready to know the rest of the story. And if they haven't, we go on to other things. And it's just something that is just a very natural way for me.
It's interesting because you say, you know, talking about the extraterrestrial reality, it can be boring for you, but it's definitely a growing edge. It's like exciting for a long time if it's new for you, and then eventually, when it's not new anymore, you know, then it's kind of like it's a room in you know to
Excuse
explore.
me. The Yeah, for me though, what's interesting is I came out publicly to talk about it in 1990s, you know, late 1990s. And a lot of the things that I said and I talked about are now very popular in the New Age community. A lot of people you know, gone to that point and they talked about it, such as I brought up the information about human origins, what I was told about it, and how I was told that we're hybrid races of not just one or two, but if we were able to decode the genetic material within us, we would be able to recognize common alleles and things that belong to other extraterrestrial groups if the extraterrestrial DNA was part of our repertoire that we had to use to decode our own DNA, which I think it is probably in areas of the military, etc. But anyway, you know, that's not within our purview, so we don't really understand that. We don't know how to see all those, all that's within us as to who we are. I was shared how I was told stories about how the humans actually had been used as a labor resource long time ago. And also, as I said in the book, that, hey, I don't know if this is true. No one will ever know if this is true. And this is what I want people to remember when they listen to me, when they get information, like anybody. A lot of it, you will never know the truth. We have to use our own mind. And this is what they want us to do, is to become smart. And so when we hear these stories about who we are, what we've been, what the universal cosmos may be, or what it was like, or was there an Atlantean or long time civilizations preceding us that were advanced, we're not going to know. We're not going to be able to, even if we discover archaeological fragments and things, we are not going to know the truth. And a lot of people are out there saying, my version is the truth. This extraterrestrial race was here and they founded us. Or that extraterrestrial race did this. Or there was this long lost civilization that was here and that happened. These are versions of the truth. We don't know. And what they taught me, interestingly, was they said that everything actually happened, because that time is of such a unique nature that there are many points of reality, and in every dimension of reality something happened. Even if you think it happened. So as a result, we are never going to know the truth. We just need to find what might seem right or plausible for our time, and we have to recognize that what our current set of circumstances are that we regard as truth can change.
Right, and I think that that's such a difficult place in the journey, because it's even like that place of learning to trust. Um, what do you trust? So even our own personal experience, if it's slightly altered, can be. It's like there might be so much misinformation out there about it that I've had various different experiences, but it's, I suppose the path is about personal experience and building that edge, the edge of personal experience and personal mastery, as you say, with that goes along with that experience. But it's such a it's such a mind fuck of a field, since we're allowed to swear on this one. It's so
Yeah, this is like
mind.
cable. This is like cable. You can say what you want.
Yes, it's just people think they're going in one direction, and then there's information from here that says no, it's not that, and then there's information from here that says the opposite. And it's, I know from my own journey, it's been like, well, what is going on really? Like, what is really the
And
truth here?
yeah, and what you just said is at the crux of the matter is we have to become smart navigators, and that's what they're waiting for. There is so much information out there that each and every individual has to determine for themselves what is right. I've had people who've spoken with me who said, well, I'm not going to mention any names, but like this new age personality said it, so it's so. Well, they, of course this is what's happened. So and so said it, and I think, that's ridiculous. Why would you believe somebody? How do you know that they're accurate or they're true? But they follow them around and parrot what they say, like a young child. And it's sad because they're then showing how willing they are to be manipulated. And what has happened to man throughout the ages? He's been manipulated. Whether it's been political institutions, religious institutions, military institutions, man has been told what you will think and what you will believe. We have to become emancipated thinkers. And we can do it with a spiritual heart. So we just have to sift it all out and say maybe. And we have to learn what makes a better balance for us at the time. Saying that, we also have to recognize that what may be truth when we're 21 may change when we're 31. We may not look through the same filter. We may have gained a different degree of wisdom. I've had teachings even from those who visit me to that I just baloney. You know, I just didn't accept. But maybe 10 years have passed. My wisdom, my understanding has grown on many levels, and I now see how that is a piece of the puzzle and fits in. So, you know, like you said, we have to decide, you know, what do we believe? Part of that is becoming an emancipated thinker, not just believing because somebody says so. I get really annoyed with all the egos and personalities that are out there. And that's one of the reasons why I stopped doing a lot of the stuff that I was doing. Because, you know, it was all about you may, we have a visitor. You may see him walk across Darwin.
From the cat world.
Yeah. Um, you know, it becomes all about them. They're so thrilled to have an audience listening to their ideas. And it becomes, you know, a spectacle and a parade. And it's not about truth. There's a difference between the journey for quiet, personal, spiritual truth and the journey to become a speaker, you know, a person on the circuit, somebody in the public eye. They're two different pathways. You know, you can reconcile them as long as you're comfortable with who you are. But I just get so, you know, I've gone to these events and I just thought, it's not about, as I said, it's just about attention a lot of times. And there's a lot of information from people who've been wrong repeatedly over and over and over again. Wait a minute. This is Darwin.
Hello, Darwin.
Just so people know, they're gonna go, oh, look, she's got a tail growing out of her head. She is a strange lady.
So your messages, I mean, it's really an important one at this point, which is discernment, right?
Yes.
So,
yeah.
And I think that I mean, that is really an important thing for people to keep in mind. And, you know, I often say to people, like, just cross-reference, you know, I mean, make sure you've got various references and you know, like, you know, the Buddhists might say this about that and some other person might say this about that, and have many you know, views to kind of put in together and find your own journey within that.
Can you hear that? It's not me, everybody. It's not me. It's the cat. He has asthma and he's going. He's watching the birds. I just want people to know that is not me.
It's so funny. I can't hear it.
Thank God. I just looked in case you could. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, shame. Poor thing. So yeah, just that discernment thing is really important, and you know,
it is, and even the extra, you know, those who come in and work with us and watch over us, they, you know, they're looking for us to have it too, to not be, you know, so naive. And that goes back to what I mentioned before, where I think they give us that fraternity hazing test of seeing whether we're going to believe everything they tell us. And they usually start with how wonderful you are, you know, to see if you fell prey to the ego. So, yeah, that is one of the stepping stones for humanity to reach a plateau of maturity that is necessary to go forward to an advanced civilization. So, to be respectful of each other and listen to each other, but no, we don't need any more gurus. We're past the age of gurus, and people are still looking for it. It's part of the human herding tendency of how we act in crowds and around each other. Is we look for a leader, we look for a strong leader, and we follow. We have to be the leader within. We have to find the master within.
One of the things that I've definitely learned is about, you know, putting people on pedestals or whatever, and thinking, okay, because they're on the world tour or they're on the circuit, they're speaking everywhere, that they are so much better than me. And I've just, you know, I've realized that it's really not that. It's just that they have emerged. They've emerged in the world, and this is their voice. It doesn't mean it's the only voice. It doesn't mean it's the voice.
You know, I agree with you. I find that a lot of times the wisdom's in the audience. You know, and so I think a lot of new voices need to get ready to get out there and spread their mission, their vision, their ideas. That's what it's time for. And I know I've worked with thousands of people. I've worked in people in over 45 countries over the past just couple of years alone. And there are so many brilliant minds out there that are doing their own thing. And I believe the new season is upon us just about, where a lot of these fresh faces are going to come forward. A lot of people are concentrating their time on what they're doing in terms of their projects or their businesses, or their social enterprises. But the new faces are out there, and I think we're right on the crest right now of hearing this emerging new chorus that's coming up from this greatly awakening population. It's happening fast.
So you started out by saying you think we're still on a kind of tipping edge, that there's kind of a choice point that is still unfolding for us.
Yes.
So we haven't crossed completely, we're not free of...
No, no. We're still greatly influenced, and we're also very bound up by the current constraints that that are the economies in all of the countries right now. So we're very much bound by the old world that we've come out of. And, it's going to take a while to throw off those yokes. And I think that one of the major ways to do that is to give people information and opportunity, both of those two things. Information has always helped a civilization advance. When people have the ability, incoming, the ability for knowledge, Darwin. Oh, God. The ability, it's like an unruly kid. The ability to obtain knowledge, to answer their questions, and to advance into opportunities in life is really, really important. And giving them that chance to do so in our societies is something that needs to, young man, I am so sorry about this, that needs to happen. That's one good thing about the internet, but it's like the Wild West. There's all kinds of information out there and everybody's believing it, but it's either put out there by people who want you to believe something, or it's not verified, etc. So we need to give people new opportunities to throw off these old yokes. They don't know. Sometimes they just don't know how. And I think in the past you would see, and we still see, revolutions is the way that people do it. But I think it's going to be different types of revolutions. I think there's going to be more social revolutions that people are going to, there's a lot of things in the cyber world. There's just different ways that people, if they think smartly, they can advance. Also, there's old strategic ways of looking at things. You can spend your energy fighting old ways, or you can spend your energy creating new processes and new ways. And the latter is what I think is going to happen, is people are just going to spend more time creating what society needs in these different areas and put it out there, and the audience will be there. The consumer will be there. So, we don't have to cry out to crush something that's been in the past, but we can instead just focus our time in putting out the new tools and information. All right, that's it. That's it. I'm sorry. It's like a child who misbehaves. I'm so sorry.
Marcia, I just want to ask you a couple more
Where's
questions.
the editor on this thing? I hope you have a good editor.
I wanted to just ask you about this kind of paradigm shift of understanding, that thought has a frequency, and that perhaps other civilizations, or even more advanced technology, is harnessing this idea of frequency technology, for one, from the outside, but also, thought as frequency technology. What I mean by that is, so I think sometimes people can contact can be made through a focused mind. And that focused mind can have a particular kind of frequency, and that frequency can be quite disturbing. Might not be the most loving kind of contact, you could say. It might be benevolent, but it might not. And so what are the tools that we have to deal with these kinds of things? I don't know if you've got any ideas around that.
Well, one of the things that I've seen through my journeys is what I'm going to share with you. But let me just provide a little explanation to people who aren't familiar with what I do. Is that, as you know, Amanda, I've seen things. I can see people's reincarnational pathways, and though there's no proof for it, it's been very interesting because I've seen lots of trends and patterns and similarities amongst different people for civilizations in which they live. Where I'm going with this is that I have seen during a civilization which I think we affectionately like to call Atlantis, which was, I think it's a catch-all phrase for a very long period of time for a developed civilization that lived on the planet. But what I've seen is that there were brigades of people during this particular civilization that came together that had to keep themselves at a certain level of spiritual purity and awareness, and they would use frequencies similar to what we know as toning today that would be sent out and used to almost create like a, maybe like a cloud cover is the best word I could explain it, to help harmonize situations. Now, that's one of those things that sounds very new age to some people, like, what? But other people are going to go, yeah, of course, I get it, you know, who are into that type of thing. But I think that that was an effective approach to some degree. And I think, you know, throughout history, other civilizations have used this, where monks have come together to chant or to tone in prayer and peace. I believe that these create energy fields that affect our emotional fields. And so, you know, I think that that's possible to do that. And you know, even in recent times, a lot of people have done that. And they've come in these convergences. They have mass prayers, mass meditations, which I believe affects the cosmic, we can call them cosmic waves, I don't know what else to call it, you know, some of the energy particles that are around us, and promotes a more harmonious field that people respond to, you know. So, on a broad base, you know, I think there's those potential events that can have some effect. In fact, the ancients used to call them, I think they're pronounced egregores, where people would come together and create a major thought form. And then the thought form would be moved out by those who knew how to do it over certain places in the civilization that needed the benefit of this energy. You know, so there are processes to do that, but also on an individual basis, each and every person makes a difference. How do we hold ourselves? If we hold ourselves in a disciplined state of steadiness and reasonableness, and to a degree a loving heart, even, what is it like when that person walks in the room? The energy changes, you feel it. You see this, you know, this is a magnificent person, this is a great person, somebody I want to know or be near. The more of us that do that, to focus within the center of ourselves and make ourselves better people, will affect the eventual core that is out there. You know, it's like little tiny embers all throughout the world that will eventually come together and meet and make a great flame. One of the things that people who share the types of viewpoints of things that we're talking about need to do is to find each other. And that's what I believe, going back to reincarnation, I've learned we have a soul group collective mission. And the soul group mission is that we have to learn how to find each other, connect with each other positively, and create a new wave of evolution forward by creating these new, not only just thoughts and processes, but the energy we carry within ourselves. And you know, I said we're like little embers, but what happens when little embers grow together? They become a big flame. And so this is what I feel is the direction for all of us to do. What you're doing here with these Skype interviews, you know, are a start, and what so many other people will be doing, where there'll be so much more accessible information for people out there to be able to go through like this library of choose of, oh, this is interesting. I like what this person had to say. I didn't care as much for this part, or I didn't care as much for this person. But there's going to be more and more of these resources available and the importance of this is that so many people right now are still feeling isolated around the world with what they're doing. I believe that there is a little bit of an evolutionary bump happening to us, and that many people are experiencing it, where they're looking at life differently, they're seeing things differently, they're feeling differently. Some of them are tapping into their paranormal skill set even, and they're feeling isolated. And imagine if you could be around many people who felt the same way or understood the world in a way similar that these people do. Then they can come together, and then they can use their knowledge and resources that have new applicability and create new societies. I think that actually the new societies are going to form in small satellite hubs around the world in very special areas, and then begin to spread out. One thing we haven't talked about is another thing that's going to be descending upon us. It looks like we're not going to be able to escape it at this point. That's going to also help reshape our future is some of the environmental changes. Water, basic resources, the food supply. There's going to be mass migrations taking place that are going to cause people to have to leave their lands and move to new areas, which is going to upset cultures. But upsetting cultures is not necessarily a bad thing. Cultural shift is what needs to happen right now. Changes come through. So, we're on the precipice of many different forces coming down upon us at once that, as I started at the beginning to say, will make a big difference if we learn how to thread it together and realize what's happening, and that we have an opportunity, not calamity. We have opportunity to redefine who we are, to redefine our future, and to create new societies that are peaceful and profitable. And that profit lies in human capital, and not exploiting it, but by tendering it and building it to be something very powerful. And as this happens, I'm sure we're going to be going back out into space once again and joining the cosmic community.
I look forward to that homecoming.
Well, there's a lot of steps that'll probably be happening in between, but there's a lot coming in the next few years. So, but it's going to be rough, but we'll make it through.
So if people are wanting to, make contact with X, Y, and Z civilization, are you saying you don't really think that that's as much the focus right now, or would you say...
The focus is on us. The focus is on us, and that's what they always taught me throughout the years. It's not about them, it's about us. It's about us creating a better world, a better civilization by being a better being. And so we can externalize, and there are people who say, well, when are they coming to save us? Where are they? Why haven't they intervened? This is our responsibility. We have become, for hundreds of thousands of years, we've been the dominant species on the planet. Dominant is the key word. And we've abused that position. And we haven't lived in peace and harmony on the planet. And we have to learn how to do that. And we do that again, being better people. So, this is what they're waiting for us to do. It's not their job to make us better, and we've been able to benefit in many ways by many of the things they've given us. But we've got to assert ourselves and take responsibility for who we are and paint the future with the right colors.
Wow. So many questions, but we're at the end of an hour, and I don't know whether you want to go on or where you're at with
I actually I need to end it. I need to wrap it up here just because of my schedule today.
Yes.
Otherwise, I could spend more time with you, but we could do this again.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It was so wonderful to have the opportunity to connect with you and make the bridge,
Thank you. If anybody wants to see more of what I do, they can go to beyondzebra.com, Beyond zebra.com, and they can see all the work that's going on there.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Marcia.
Thank you.
Go
Enjoyed talking to
well.
you.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.